There's too much money riding on seed oils. They can't produce addictive, empty, junk food, processed food, without the seed oil.
For decades, Sally Fallon Morell has led a grassroots movement to see healthy foods in every household in America. She's the president of the Weston A. Price Foundation.
You need to get in the kitchen. It doesn't mean you have to spend hours in the kitchen, but you need to get in the kitchen and learn how to produce healthy food for your family.
In this episode, she explains what's wrong with our modern diet and calls for a return to traditional, nutrient-dense foods for better health.
Animal fats are good for you. They're not going to give you heart disease. Quite the opposite. They're very stable and they support good health. They support heart health.
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kelly. Sally Fallon, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you, Jan. I'm very pleased to be here.
So, not too long ago, I had never heard about any issue with seed oils. Today, we're constantly hearing about seed oils and potential problems with them. And it turns out that you had something to do with this, your work. So what's going on with seed oils?
Yes, one of our founders was Mary Enig, a lipid scientist who had been beating the drum about the dangers of the seed oils ever since she got her PhD, and she had done research on them. She did a lot of work on the trans fats, which, by the way, led to their being banned from the food supply. But the liquid oils and the sort of thickened liquid oils that we get in spreads, they're still here.
Why should we be concerned about seed oils?
Well, animal fats are expensive, and the food industry needs a cheap oil. And this started in the 1890s when they developed the stainless steel press, which allowed them to get oil out of seeds that you couldn't do that before. So the first one was cottonseed oil, and then they could get oil out of corn, which had never been done before, and then canola, which is rapeseed, and soybeans. So they started using these instead of the animal fats, and they had a big campaign to make you think that these seed oils were a healthy alternative to animal fats. But
they're not somehow?
No, they're not. They're not. They the problem with the oils is that they're fragile. Any liquid oil is fragile, and it oxidizes easily, and it breaks down in the body into simple molecules called aldehydes. And not to get too technical, but there is an aldehyde that you know about. It's called formaldehyde. And I think it's very interesting that the undertakers are saying they don't need as much formaldehyde anymore to cure or preserve these bodies. It's already there. And this is coming from the seed oils. And they have been implicated. They're carcinogenic. They know that. They have been implicated in heart disease and many other conditions. And infertility is another thing that they lead to.
These things are ubiquitous.
Yeah, they are everywhere.
Yeah, so I'd never heard anything about, like, why would you have something that's known carcinogenic? Like, this doesn't make a terrible amount of sense to most people. So we have to kind of back up a little bit, right?
Follow the money. I mean, it's much less expensive to use soybean oil or corn oil, and then butter. Butter is a very expensive fat, or lard or tallow. Those are the three main ones. And then there's also what I call the fruit oils, which is palm oil, coconut oil, palm kernel oil. These are much healthier than the seed oils because they're more saturated. And you know, the saturated fats have been demonized, but the saturated fats are the good fats. They're the stable fats that don't break down, and the fats that traditional people prized and always made sure they ate with their food.
I mean, I'm thinking back to growing up in the 80s. Like, we were literally taught the exact opposite thing, right? That margarine is better. It's like, as a society, we agreed to believe this.
Well, it was a tremendous marketing campaign, starting with Crisco, which means crystallized cottonseed oil, and it was a partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil. And this was pushed relentlessly, starting with a book called The Story of Crisco, in which they said that American housewives, if they use Crisco instead of lard, They were more modern. Their houses would smell better. They were cleaner. They had a cleaner house. And their children would have better character if they used Crisco instead of lard. I mean, it was a brilliant advertising campaign. And that book, The Story of Crisco, is still used in classes on advertising today.
What is the evidence that, and we're saying this kind of broadly, seed oils, that have all these problems that you're talking about. What is the evidence base for that?
Well, there is a lot of evidence. I give it all in my book, Nourishing Fats. But for example, in the early days, and this is in the, about the time you were going to school in the 1980s, they gave animals a carcinogen. And one group was fed saturated fat and one group was fed unsaturated fat, like a seed oil. And the ones who were fed saturated fat did not get cancer, and the ones who were fed the seed oils did get cancer. So there were a lot of studies like that. There was several groups in the country who were doing these studies, but you never hear about them. But they're there. They're right in the literature.
What about, actually, I think my favorite oil, olive oil. How does that fit into the picture? Because that's ancient, right?
Yes. Yeah. Olive oil is a fruit oil, and it's easy to get out of the olive with a stone press, so you don't have to heat it to remove it. And as soon as it comes out of the olive, it smells good and tastes good. Olive oil is also very stable. It's not saturated, but it's monounsaturated, which is just about as stable as saturated fat.
So really it all comes down to, just going back to what you said earlier, it's about the stability of the oil ultimately.
Exactly. And in the seeds, it's tightly held in there, so when you eat the seed, it hasn't oxidized. But when you crush these seeds with a stainless steel roller press, you get this polyunsaturated oil. And by the way, what comes out of the seeds is a foul-smelling gunk that has to be further processed, heated very hot several times. And remember, these oils are fragile. And then when you get the oil in the bottle, you're told it's okay to cook with it. So you're heating it again.
I see. Well, so then you would distinguish between what they call extra virgin, which is this cold-pressed olive oil, and the hot-pressed stuff, which is still more common, I think.
Yes, well, you do want the extra virgin. Yeah, you want the cold press.
So it's always the least processed thing. That's what we're going for here.
Exactly. And I would say the most traditional thing. The palm oil is traditional in Africa. Coconut oil is traditional in the tropical regions, and olive oil is traditional in the Mediterranean. And mankind has used these oils for thousands and thousands of years, and they're still here, so it hasn't wiped them out,
Okay. There's this huge focus on looking at traditional ways, but give me a sense of where this whole idea come from. This has been around for quite some time. I only heard, and for full disclosure, I only heard of it for the first time about 6 months ago when we met at an event. So,
right, okay.
Right.
So we were set up, the Weston A. Price Foundation was set up to honor and disseminate the work of Weston Price, who was a dentist who had this unique idea back in the 30s and 40s to study isolated people. He called them primitive people, and that was a compliment. He was not trying to put them down. And to see what their health was like, and if he could find healthy people, especially people with healthy teeth, he was a dentist, what were they eating? And he found 14 groups throughout the world who had perfect teeth, no cavities, no infection, and very broad faces, so their teeth were naturally straight. Nobody needed braces. And along with this, they seemed to be perfectly healthy, no degenerative disease. The other thing that was noticed at the time was how easily the women had their babies. So he found 14 groups, and then the question was, what were these people eating? Now, the diets were very different. You had Alaska and you had the South Seas. But there were some commonalities, and the real commonality was these diets were very high in minerals, and particularly high in what we call the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, and K. And where do we get these fat-soluble vitamins? We get them from animal fats. We get them from organ meats. We get them from shellfish and certain seafoods. These are what we call the sacred foods, and they were highly prized, especially prized for having healthy babies. And so our mission is to bring people back to these foods, to get people to eat butter again, whole milk, By the way, egg yolks are a sacred food as well, very rich in nutrients and fat-soluble activators. So it's going back to the type of diet that nourished obviously healthy people.
Did people traditionally really have better health? Right now we have a life expectancy has been starting to come down in the U.S., but for the longest time it's been going up.
Two things going on here. First of all, in the 1700s and 1800s, life in the cities was filthy. You had piles of stinking horse manure everywhere. No sewage, no water treatment, no refrigeration. And the lifespan, the death rate of children up to the age of 5 was 50%. So that's a factor that brought the longevity down. But if you were raised in the country on real food, raw milk, and ate butter, which all Americans did, that we did have a long lifespan. And among these traditional people, although we don't know the lifespan, nobody was keeping records, but there were elders in every community, and they led a very important role in these communities.
Well, and also you had a higher likelihood of dying due to accident or
trauma,
carnivore attack or something.
Carnivore attack, yeah.
Right.
It was a dangerous lifestyle, especially for the men. They took great care about having children. They spaced their babies so they were 3 years apart. They had special foods to prepare them for pregnancy, and Price did not observe, high infant mortality actually.
Basically, you're saying there's a side effect of civilization, so to speak, or certain ways in which manifested, which became really bad for people, which of course we know it is true in these types of scenarios you were describing.
Well, the introduction to the West, what did the West bring? They brought alcohol, sugar, then white flour, and tea, and all of these things they gobbled up immediately. They tasted so different. And what he observed was, in the first generation of eating these foods of commerce, as he called them, the first thing that happened was rampant tooth decay, causing tremendous amount of suffering because the foods had gotten there but not the dentists. And then the second generation, it took just one generation, the children born looked different. They had more narrow faces, less space in the sinus passages.
Because he was watching the teeth very closely, right?
And the teeth were crooked. They were crooked and crowded. And that's when TB came along. And he thought that TB was due to a malformation of the lungs. The lungs hadn't been formed properly, just like the mouth hadn't been formed properly.
Fascinating. And so, has there been further work done to look at this?
Well, nobody really followed Dr. Price. There were a few doctors who implemented his diet. One was Dr. Pottinger in California, who wrote a very interesting book. He did studies with cats, and he noted that in cats, if you give them a diet that's not the appropriate diet for cats, you get degeneration for 3 generations, and then the 4th generation, there are no more cats.
So there's a fertility effect, basically.
There's by the 3rd generation, and that's where we are here. And what are we seeing? We're seeing a decline in fertility. And we believe we're at the 11th hour, and we're highly motivated to bring our message to prospective parents so they can feed these nutrient-dense foods to themselves to prepare for pregnancy, and then to their children as they grow.
This is really important, actually, because I think I see the argument now. The argument is basically in earlier civilizations, or earlier, what Weston Price called, kind of primitive living groups, so to speak. People ate as well as possible. Then they figured out, given what was available, that would maximize their ability to have children. That was probably one of the most important things you could actually do.
When they killed an animal, the first thing they did was eat the organ meats. And the organ meats are 100, even 1,000 times more nutritious than the muscle meats. And then they ate the muscle meats. They always ate the muscle meats with the fat. If they never ate lean meat, and we do have a scientific reason for that. And the plant foods were there, and almost every diet there were plant foods, carbohydrate foods. It's not like we're saying don't eat vegetables or don't eat sweet potatoes, but the animal foods were primary, and they were the chief source of nutrition.
Fascinating. What about you? What is your backstory here? I mean, how did you get involved in working with the foundation?
Well, I came from an interesting family. I would say my parents were probably the first foodies in the world. They were very interested in food, and they traveled a lot. And my mother was a great cook, so she'd come home and make cassoulet or filet of sole meuniere or whatever. So, and she always used butter. I'm very grateful. So we grew up on butter. And I had a daughter who was a beautiful little girl, and that's when this message started to come out that don't give your kids whole milk, and don't give them butter, and don't give them eggs. Give them cereal, not eggs, you know. And I knew that this was wrong. It's just like you. I felt it inside. And it was just around that time I read Dr. Price's book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And it showed me that I was on the right path.
So right now, probably the last thing you want to be seeing is a pitch from Jan, but I want to encourage you to subscribe to the Epoch Times. It is how we keep the lights on. It is how we keep these interviews coming. Just hit the link below and subscribe to the Epoch Times. You mentioned raw milk earlier, and this has become such an amazingly controversial thing. And I'll tell you something about when I grew up, right? My mother actually had been an agricultural inspector in Poland, and the sanitation was not good for her. If milk was not pasteurized, that was, a death knell. That's kind of what I grew up with. Okay, I still remember. I'm going to tell the story. I was in France. I had made a deal with a woman who lived in Paris to help her out in her summer cottage, and I would get to stay and sort of check out the countryside. She took me to a farm. I tried raw milk, but I almost didn't, because I said, wait, you can just drink it straight.
What your mother said.
You can drink it straight from the cow. And she's like, are you crazy? Anyway, so apparently in the French countryside, it was perfectly a normal thing to do. But why is raw milk so controversial?
Yes, well, we know a lot more about milk today than we did in the 1960s, let's say, where it was just assumed to be dangerous and full of germs. We now know that there's a large number of antimicrobial compounds in raw milk that kill pathogens but support the growth of the good guys in the gut. And these components protect the gut wall, and we just keep finding these wonderful things in raw milk, and they're all destroyed by pasteurization. And what happens in pasteurization, we now know, is that the proteins are so warped and distorted that they become allergenic. So more and more people are allergic to milk. It's the #1 allergy. Consumption of pasteurized milk is relentlessly declining, in spite of all the publicity campaigns, the milk mustache campaign and everything, because it makes the kids have a tummy ache or makes them break out in a rash. The other thing about raw milk is that every single vitamin and mineral in the milk has a special enzyme to ensure 100% assimilation. And we don't have that in any other food. So 100% of the iron, 100% of the calcium, 100% of the B1, they're all absorbed and nourish the infant. And you can just, I wish someone would do a study comparing our Weston Price babies brought up on raw milk and babies brought up on pasteurized milk.
I heard from the NIH director that they're looking to do all sorts of studies these days on health. So maybe you could make a proposal, perhaps.
I would love to. Yes,
right.
Yes. But what we have done at the Weston A. Price Foundation is work on the state level to liberalize the laws. When we started, in only 27 states could farmers provide raw milk in some form or another. And now it's 47 states, so we're just lacking 3 states now. And there's what I call the Amish empire. The Amish are taking raw milk all over the country, and wonderful. It's wonderful.
Well, so tell me about your relationship, because this is exactly what I was thinking. When I think of raw milk, I think of Amish production.
Yes.
And so what's the connection? So every Amish knows about the Weston A. Price Foundation, I guess.
No, they don't. No. But I would say the Pennsylvania Amish started this delivery system. And it just grew and grew, and I think this is why it's actually been legalized in many states, because it was there anyway. When we got the first pet milk permit in the state of Maryland, and there was already pet milk in Maryland from Pennsylvania.
What does that mean?
It means it has to have a label on it. It says it's for dogs and cats.
I see.
It's kind of a little loophole. Okay.
Okay.
And I said, look, you're allowing Pennsylvania farmers to sell this milk in Maryland. You're not letting a Maryland farmer do this? And so they had to. They had to give us the permit.
I see. And so you're saying it's pet milk, but if someone happens to drink the pet milk, that's up to them.
Yeah, it's up to them. Yeah.
I see. Fascinating.
And I have to say, Jan, I am a big advocate for strict cleanliness in the dairy. And we can teach farmers how to produce milk that's, we get zero coliform when we test it. So, our milk is clean or cleaner than pasteurized
No,
milk.
you're saying ours, I mean like milk that you are producing on your farm.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so,
yes.
well, tell me about that too.
Yeah, so, well, this is my husband and my folly of buying this beautiful little farm, and we have a small dairy herd. We produce raw cheese, and somewhere along the line I was able to get the pet milk permit.
But I guess refrigeration is an important component here.
It absolutely
right?
is.
Yes.
Because even if your milk starts off clean, if it's not refrigerated, it will ferment. And by the way, when raw milk goes off, shall we say, it ferments. It actually becomes safer because it becomes more acidic. But when pasteurized milk goes off, it rots, and that is not safe. So in many ways, the raw milk is actually safer than pasteurized milk.
I've covered at the Epoch Times a number of controversies. I think about raw milk in Pennsylvania, the Amish communities.
Yeah.
People have been threatened even with jail for this kind of thing. Why is that?
Well, it's so foreign to the health departments, and they think they're protecting the public. And I'm not criticizing anybody. They've just had the wrong education. They haven't kept up with the science. But nothing gets the dander up of the public than going after raw milk, because you have what I call the raw milk moms who see how healthy their children are on this product, and they get out there. They get on the phone. They protest. They go to the trials. So.
And I guess this raw milk, you were talking about cow's milk here. I guess it's because it's close to human mother's milk.
Well, all mammals produce milk.
Yes.
Okay, and it's all close to human milk. Some has more fat than camel's milk has more salt in it, which is kind of interesting. But all over the world, mankind has nourished themselves with the milk of mammals: cows, goats, sheep, camels, water buffalo, reindeer. And the cultures that have herds are at an advantage because they always have available this healthy food,
which has this unbelievable absorption that you described.
Yes.
I didn't know that. And so you're saying all milk basically functions like that.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes. Cow's milk, I prefer it to goat milk because it's richer in B12 and B6, but some people find that goat milk is easier to digest. So everyone's different.
At Weston Price, you do advocacy for raw milk, obviously, and that's part of your own interest as well. What other work do you do? And of course, there's the Nourishing Traditions cookbook, which I know, I don't know how many people have been using, but it's become an incredibly popular.
Well, it came out in 1996, and my co-author, Mary Enig, and I felt that we needed something else to be looking at the science, to keep this in front of people all the time. So we set up the Weston A. Price Foundation, which publishes a journal. So our number one role is education, but we also do advocacy, and it's not just telling people about the good foods, it's helping them find these good foods. Because let's face it, you can't look in the newspaper and find raw milk, So we set up a website, realmilk.com, to find the raw milk, and then we have over 400 local chapters who keep a local food list. So let's just say you move to Alameda, California, and you want to find the raw milk, you call your local chapter, and they'll tell you where it is. Or you want to find pastured eggs, or some kind of food delivery group, or whatever. The local chapter will help you find that. A lot of people think we're sort of this homesteading movement, but I have to always correct that Not many people can afford the luxury of being homesteaders. What I'm concerned about is getting these foods to the single mom living in an apartment in Brooklyn. This is the group that we need to meet, and this is what we're trying to do.
Well, this is a very great point. How available is it if in situations like that?
Well, it depends.
Because there's food deserts. You hear about food deserts,
yes,
for example, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a lot of deliveries. I believe there was a delivery in Brooklyn to a church basement for a while. I'm not quite sure what's going on now, but there's definitely food deliveries all over the country.
And so it's realmilk.com where people that are interested.
Realmilk.com. Yeah.
Presumably, if you're not convinced, you're watching this and you're like, I don't know about this raw milk
thing,
but
crazy.
I want to. Well, not quite. but I feel like I really want to read the science. Is that on realmilk.com? You have that information provided?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a lot of articles about the science. Ted Beals, who did some great epidemiology for us, has articles there. So pretty much all your questions about milk would be on that website.
What are the sort of biggest lessons? One lesson I just got is that raw milk is good.
Yes.
It's healthy, and as long as it's refrigerated.
Yes.
But what would other sort of top line lessons that we could learn from?
Right. Well, animal fats are good for you. They're not going to give you heart disease. Quite the opposite. They're very stable, and they support good health. They support heart health.
And where did that idea come from?
Yeah.
I started learning this maybe a decade ago that this was wrong, or maybe even a little more than that. But
well, you're going to promote your product, which is vegetable oils, and the way it's done is you demonize the competition. What's the competition? It's animal fats, butter and lard especially. So how are you going to demonize butter and lard? Well, you're going to pick things that are in butter and lard that are not in vegetable oils, saturated fats and cholesterol. And you're going to make those into a villain. And that's exactly what they did. And I have written extensively on this, showing how the early science they used to justify the demonization of the fats that had kept us healthy for thousands of years was just very flimsy. Very flimsy science.
As we're filming, we're kind of days away from an initial report on, tackling chronic disease, right? From HHS, going to come out on the 22nd. This is all your answer here, right?
Yes, it's to go back to the foods that didn't give us chronic disease, that kept us from having chronic disease. These traditional people who were eating liver and raw milk and animal fats, they didn't have heart disease, they didn't have cancer. Dr. Price talked to a doctor who'd been among the Eskimos for 40 years, and he said he never saw a case of cancer or heart disease or kidney trouble or anything in these people who were eating their traditional diet. And that diet was 80% of calories was animal fat. And he had never seen any chronic disease.
So raw milk is good, animal fats are good.
Yes. The other big campaign that we've had is about the soy and the problems with soy. Not just the soybean oil, but the soy protein that they're putting in all the foods, all the fake foods made out of soy. Soy, first of all, is very difficult to digest. It has enzyme inhibitors in it that depress pancreatic function. Very difficult to digest. It's also a goitrogen. It's hard on the thyroid gland. It depresses thyroid function. And the third thing is soy contains plant types of estrogens. And we had a very terrible experiment take place in the prisons in Illinois. We corresponded with a lot of these prisoners. And when Blagojevich became governor, he wanted to reduce the budget, so they served, the whole diet was soy. Fake soy meat, soy in the baked goods, soybean oil. And what happened was tremendous health problems occurred, especially thyroid problems. The men grew breasts, and they called it chemical castration, actually, is what happened to these men. And when they got out, they were so sick that they had to go on disability. Now, they finally stopped because, and I don't think it was really because of our efforts, but because it just got too expensive for them to deal with. To
deal with the health problems associated with that diet. There's millions, if not billions, of people that are eating tofu daily. frankly seem to be in better health in some cases, right?
Well, we hear from the ones who get really sick, but you have to distinguish between soy consumption in Asia today, which is much higher than it was traditionally.
Okay.
Traditionally, it was about a tablespoon in Japan per day, usually tofu cut in little cubes in the fish broth. And the fish broth supports thyroid health, so they kind of balanced each other out. And then in China, it was about a teaspoon a day as a flavoring, as a soy sauce. So it wasn't a source of protein in these diets. The main source of calories in the traditional Chinese diet was pork, and the main source of calories in the traditional Japanese diet was fish. It wasn't soybeans. I mean, the soybean industry blames us for killing their big campaign to get everybody eating soy.
I see. Any other, kind of top line?
Well, another one is salt. Traditional cultures all had a source of salt. They valued salt. Salt consumption in America at the turn of the century was about 3 teaspoons a day. Very little heart disease. Now it's 1.5 teaspoons a day, which does satisfy our requirements for sodium and chlorine, but they want to cut this in half. We need salt, and by the way, babies need salt for the growth of the brains and for all sorts of things. For hormone production, you need salt for hormone production. So salt is basic, it's very important. We need salt in the diet, and that's been another campaign that we've carried out.
I'm very happy to hear that, because I always feel that food is undersalted.
Well, there's a reason you have a salt taste in your mouth. I always say the Creator didn't put that salt taste there to torture you, but because we need to put salt on our food. The chloride part of salt is what we make hydrochloric acid with in the stomach, and we could not digest protein without salt. And the sodium part activates enzymes for carbohydrate digestion. So salt is essential for digestion.
Well, and then there's this whole other dimension that when you're eating these, ultra-processed foods, which of course you've just made the case is, are going to be high in these seed oils and other things, that also changes how you feel hunger. It changes a lot of things, right? It kind of deregulates you somehow.
Well, there's added, this industry is very good at addiction technology, making you want more. They have things that stimulate the taste buds. And one that hasn't been studied at all is the fake salt that's being put into the processed food. It's called Simonix. It's not labeled. All they have to do is call it an artificial flavor. It's in everything, Jan. It's in soft drinks. It's in chips. It's in
Why
pastries.
is it fake salt? What does that mean?
Well, it stimulates a salt taste in your mouth, but it doesn't give you the salt that you need.
I see.
And the obvious thing that's going to happen is more obesity, because your body really needs salt. And people will just eat and eat and eat till they get the salt they need. Okay. So they have to eat twice as much to get the salt they need if they're putting this artificial salt flavor in.
So I'm thinking back to there was this South Park episode a while back where the kids call up I think it's the FDA, and they're like, "It's an emergency. The food pyramid is inverted," or I forget exactly. It's a very kind of a funny moment, but is that the case?
Well, the food pyramid came out. It's actually USDA that put this out, and it put the carbohydrates at the base, white flour, and of course they give lip service to whole grains, but what happens is people eat a lot more white flour, which is kind of an empty food. It gave Americans the green light to eat all the carbohydrates they want, and we do need carbs in our diet, but not to the extent that we're eating them. And the idea was that this was going to curb disease, curb obesity. Well, obesity rates have tripled since the food pyramid came out. And then at the very top, they have fats and oils. Well, I think the oils should be minimized. I agree with that. But the thing is, the oils are hidden in the food. You don't know they're there. But you know when you put butter on your vegetables, you see the butter. So it's very mendacious, this whole thing.
Let's watch the clip.
It's It's dinner time on the East Coast in less than an hour. People are going to die.
Sir, we've got a boy on the hotline who says he might know something.
Who is this?
My name isn't important. What matters is that the answer is in the pyramid.
The pyramid? That's ancient stuff you're talking about. Are you sure? Bring up the pyramid.
What is it? What is it for?
We built the pyramid a long time ago to illustrate how much people should eat of the 4 basic food groups.
Sir, we abandoned the pyramid when Michelle Obama got involved.
The pyramid doesn't work. We've already tried it.
It's upside down.
What?
Sir, the pyramid is upside down.
Turn the pyramid upside down. You can't be serious. That would put butter and fat at the top of the damn food pyramid. This is not FDA approved. It's dinner time on the East Coast in 10 minutes. Now do it!
Sir, we've got a match. Nutrition is stabilizing.
We've got a well-balanced vaccine, sir. Get the president on the phone. Tell him to have some steak with his butter.
So what's your reaction?
Well, I think it's very funny, and I love seeing the stick of butter on top of the food. The thing about fats, Jan, is that they're satisfying, and you don't get hungry as quickly when you eat a lot of fat. So you end up eating less. And when you don't get the fats, let's just say you eat a pastry with sugar and white flour, you're going to get a big spike in blood sugar and then a precipitous drop. We call that the blood sugar roller coaster. And then you're ravenously hungry again. And you have to go out and eat something else. Whereas if you eat a breakfast with eggs and bacon and toast with lots of butter on it, you're not going to be hungry till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You don't need to go to the vending machine.
I read something in some of your materials about the politically correct nutrition.
Yes.
Yeah. So
well, that's the food pyramid. It's lots of carbs, a little bit of lean meat, skinless chicken breasts, which are disgusting, and no butter. And if you drink milk, it's got to be pasteurized skim milk.
Why is that the politically correct?
Well, that's
nutrition?
what the USDA is pushing on us with the food pyramid. Except what they're not telling you is there's a lot of seed oil in there, but it's hidden in the food.
So what do you want to see happen with the USDA, the FDA? What are your hopes here?
Well, Jan, I don't think it's going to come from the government. It's got to be individual parents, individual families. The children today are not healthy. We all know this. 1 in 2 has some kind of disorder. We're seeing autism in up to 1 in 10 children. And it can't go on. So with all the possible educational materials we can give them, with support from our chapter leaders, we've made raw milk available. We've taught people about taking cod liver oil, which is another big issue with us, very important. And we're there when people are ready.
But wouldn't you want, let's say, the government messaging to change based on everything you told me? Well,
of course I would, but I'm a realist. I don't think it's going to happen, not in our lifetimes.
Why do you say that?
There's too much money riding on what we've got today. There's too much money riding on seed oils. They can't produce addictive, empty, junk food, processed food, without the seed oils.
You have a very dark view of the whole food industry, in other words.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't think that's where we should look. You need to get in the kitchen. And it doesn't mean you have to spend hours in the kitchen, but you need to get in the kitchen and learn how to produce healthy food for your family.
You're speaking to my own inclinations. This sort of always the bottom-up approach is the one that's going to change things.
We're definitely grassroots. It's got to come from the bottom. We have something called the Healthy Baby Gallery. We publish photographs of healthy babies with parents who followed our suggestions.
I guess when it comes to this, your crisis in fertility, which of course is very real, it's not just about diet. There's environmental pollutants. There's kind of medicines people are taking. There's injectables, and so on and so forth. There's all sorts of things. There's fluoride in the water. There's all sorts of things. I mean, this is presumably what, it seems like this current U.S. administration is interested in figuring out some of these things.
Yes,
understand them.
That's all good, but when you're well nourished, you can deal with a lot of these things. Traditional people, it's kind of a myth that they lived in this pristine environment. They were breathing smoke all the time. They had smoke in their huts and their teepees. They wanted to be around smoke because it kept the mosquitoes away. And smoke is a deadly pollutant. But they had no lung disease, no fertility problems, nothing. And that's because the diets were extremely rich in vitamin A, which they got from the liver and the animal fats. And vitamin A is our #1 protection against toxins.
So, Sally, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation for me. Thanks for coming to visit us. I'm excited to try the raw cheese that you brought. I'm a huge cheese fanatic in general. But a final thought as we finish?
Yes, I think there's a lot of diets out there. There's the pyramid diet, which people are realizing is not healthy. And there's all these dietary schemes. There's paleo and there's keto and all this. But our diet is you don't have to give anything up on our diet. It's really delicious. You can have naturally sweetened desserts. We have healthy soft drinks like kombucha. We have gravy and sauces. I always like to stress it's not renunciation. It's just different. It's different. It means that you have to think about what you're creating and what you're putting in your mouth.
Well, Sally Fallon, it's such a pleasure to have had you on.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you all for joining Sally Fallon and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Yanya Kellick.